Hi, in the previous videos I have talked about the methods of soil degradation and how to solve it. In this session I am going to give a more comprehensive view of soil management. Soil management is very much essential for human beings as well as for the environment because soil sustains most living organisms. Soil management aims to protect soil and enhance its performance. It includes soil conservation, soil amendment and optimal soil health. Soil management is very much important for crop productivity, environmental sustainability, and human health. So, it aims to keep and improve soil quality. United Nations has defined soil management in following way. Soil management is sustainable if supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural services provided by soil are maintained or enhanced without significantly impairing either the soil functions that enable those services or biodiversity. So basically, what does it mean? Like we are getting different services from the soil. It has supporting services, provisioning services, regulating and cultural services. So sustainable soil management is actually aims to significantly enhance these services, these benefits from the soil without impairing anything, without negatively affecting any other services or the biodiversity. So what are the services we are actually getting from soil? Service provided by these soils including supporting services. What are the supporting services? Supporting services including the primary production of crops, nutrient cycling, and soil formation. Provisioning services including supply of food, fiber, fuel, timber, raw earth material, surface stability, habitat, and genetic resources. Regulating services including water supply and quality, carbon sequestration, climate regulation, control of flood and erosion. Cultural services is the aesthetic and cultural benefits derived from soil. So these are the services provided by the soil. So sustainable soil management is actually aiming to enhance the services. Maybe it is aiming to enhance the provisioning services of the soil, but not really want to negatively impact any other services or the biodiversity. So that type of soil management is called the sustainable soil management. So what are the characteristics of a healthy soil? How a healthy soil will look like? It has minimum rate of soil erosion by water and wind. Soil structure is not degraded. Sufficient surface to cover surface cover is present. It is store organic matter and able, availability and flow of nutrients are there. Soil salinization, solidification, and alkalinization are minimal. Water is efficiently infiltrated and stored. Contaminants are below toxic level. Functional soil biodiversity and low weed pressure. Resilience to degradation and unfavorable conditions. Soil management systems for producing food, feed, fuel, timber, and fibers rely on optimized. Soil sealing is minimized through responsible land use planning. So these are the characteristics of the sustainable soil or the soil. What are the threats to sustainable soil? Here is a list of threats to sustainable soil, and we have already discussed many of this. And how to manage soil sustainably. To minimize the soil erosion, enhance the soil organic matter, and each of them will be discussed in detail. So I am not going to read it now. So what first one is minimizing soil erosion. We already discussed the soil erosion in the previous session. What are the causes of soil erosion? What are the effects of soil erosion? How to minimize the soil erosion? As I said there, to prevent soil erosion, we need to have a cover over the soil. And this cover should be like they may be vegetative cover, maybe planting trees, things like that. If the wind erosion, there should be systems to reduce the impact of wind on the soil. Enhances soil organic matter content. So for a sustainable soil management, we need to have higher amount of organic matter in the soil. Organic matter in the soil is having different functions. It is an indication of the soil health. It provide nutrients. It prevent alkalinization. It prevent acidification. It give good structural characteristics of the soil. It support the plant growth. It support the biodiversity. It support the beneficial organism and so on and so forth. So reduction in the organic matter content in the soil is actually negatively affecting the soil health in many different ways. It affects chemically, physically, and biologically. So there, for a sustainable soil development, the soil organic carbon should be increased. There are different ways to increase the soil organic matter, which include increase the biomass production. If the soil is producing so much biomass, it will be deposited there and it will be contributing to the soil biomass. Increasing the soil organic matter content by adding organic fertilizers, organic materials in the soil. Fire should be avoided. Either it is natural fire or the plant fire, that should be avoided. Optimum use of all resources of organic inputs from the farm or the agricultural land to increase the organic content. Cover crops will actually help to increase the like organic content of the soil. Uh, there should be measures to decrease the decomposition of the soil, especially the tillage. The tillage of the soil leads to the increased degradation of organic content, which will reduce the total organic content of the soil. Then improvement of crop rotation, planting legumes, improving the crop mix, everything actually helps to improve the soil organic content. Foster soil nutrient balance and cycle. The one of the major reason for the degradation of the soil in the agricultural land is the unscientific use of fertilizers. So as we know, fertilizers are required for the farming. We cannot do the farming without using fertilizers these days because the soil fertility is lost. So to have sustainable production or the sufficient production of the food, uh, we need to have the fertilizers. But the application of the fertilizers should be in a scientific way. And how much fertilizers is needed and what type of fertilizers is needed is depending on the need of the fertilizer for the plant. So the crop need should be measured and local soil characteristics and conditions should be measured and the weather pattern should be measured. Based on these all factors, we should decide which one should be applied and how much quantity it should be applied and how we are going to apply these fertilizers. If you are adding excess of fertilizers, it affect the crop as well as the environment. If you are adding less amount of fertilizers, it won't be having beneficial effects or it won't support the high yield of the plant. So the amount of fertilizers should be very much optimized. So if the like uh, fertilizers level is optimized, it actually helps to balance the soil nutrition and the soil cycle of these nutrients, which helps to higher production of the food fibers or timber. It reduces the need of pest control. It reduces the pollution due to the fertilizers, and it also enhances the soil carbon sequestration. And how to increase the enhance this soil nutrient cycle. First thing is they use natural fertilizers as far as possible. Nutrient efficiency should be maximized. Uh, Fertilizer application method, type, rates, and timing should be appropriately fixed. Soil and plant tissue testing and field assessment should be done regularly so that we know how much fertilizers are there and what are the types and what are the negative effects, everything can be known. Then livestock movement and grazing should be managed so that enough nutrition will be evenly distributed in the whole place. Uh, and the naturally occurring mineral fertilizers sources should be allotted efficiently and strategically. Control of soil salination and alkalination. We have already discussed the causes, effects, and solutions for soil salination. And for soil salination balancing, like controlling the irrigation is very important. Sufficient water for ensuring sufficient water for the plant is important. Then water desalination can be done if the salinity comes from the water. Then drainage system should be properly managed. So we have already discussed all these things. So controlling soil salination is also important for sustainable soil management. Then prevent and minimize soil contamination. Soil contamination is another issue. Soil can be contaminated by different reasons. Maybe it is used to agricultural inputs like the fertilizers and pesticides, or the atmospheric deposition. Flood can cause contamination. Irrigation can cause accidental spills, or inappropriate urban waste and wastewater management system can cause solution of the soil, pollution of the soil. Uh, the most of the soil times what happens is like soil is having an inherent capacity to actually remediate these contaminations, but if the level of pollution exceed the remediation capacity of soil, these contaminants will be accumulated in the soil and the soil become contaminated, and this contaminated soil is having so much negative consequences. It has plant toxicities, reduction in the productivity of the plants, contamination of the water, and it may also affect the human health or animal health. It may be leads to the bioaccumulation and biomagnification. So keeping the soils out of like keeping soil safe from contamination is very much important, and there are different strategies which can be used to manage sustainable soil without contamination, which includes the legislations to prevent contamination of soil or the inappropriate waste disposal, testing, monitoring and assessment of soil in regular intervals to see that the soil is not contaminated, remediation of the soil, because the remediation of the soil is depending on the type of contamination and type of soil, uh, and this contaminated soil should not be used for food cultivation, because if crops are cultivated in the contaminated soil, it will be accumulated in the plant. Then uh, the application of the fertilizers and pesticides should be very much controlled to avoid contamination of the soil. To prevent and minimize the soil acidification. Soil acidification is another important issue. We haven't discussed this before. So soil is acidic when we say that the pH is less than 7. So if the pH is less, if the soil is acidic, the fertility of the soil will be reduced, and it affects so many different parameters of the plant growth, and it will reduce the yield and productivity, of course. Then the acidity of the soil is mainly due to the availability of exchangeable form of hydrogen and ammonium ion. Both of this hydrogen and ammonium can cause the acidity of soil. There are different causes for soil acidity, which ranges from weathering, leaching, organic matter decomposition, acid rain, crop removal, and acid forming fertilizers. There are some human-induced acidification, which is basically due to the base cation and loss of soil buffering capacity. Okay. Then how to prevent this soil acidification? There are different methods. First one is the monitoring of the soil acidity regularly. Minimize surface and surface soil acidity by using proper amendments. Amendments like lime, gypsum, and clay ash can be used to minimize the acidity. Then balance the use of fertilizers and do not use the fertilizers which cause acidity. Application of organic matter. Organic matter can actually reduce or buffer the acidity in the soil. Then then use of acid tolerant crops. If we cannot do anything about the soil acidity, plant or acid tolerant plants, this plant can eventually minimize the acidity of the soil. Then preserve and enhance the biodiversity. Soil biodiversity is very much essential for maintaining the health of soil. Then to preserve the soil biodiversity, there should be the regular monitoring and assessment pattern for soil health should be done. So how much different types of bacteria and fungus is present, and the microscopic organisms, of course, that's also part of the biodiversity. Then soil organic matter should be maintained and enhanced. Control and limit use of pesticides. Pesticides most of the time kills harmful organisms, but along with that it will also cause serious damage to the beneficial organism. Okay. And encourage the use of nitrogen fixing leguminous plants and microbial inocula, mycorrhiza, earthworms and other beneficial organisms to improve the soil health. Restoring plant diversity in the ecosystem, and other good farming practices like crop rotation, etc., can also help in increasing the soil biodiversity. Then minimize soil sealing. Soil sealing and land conversion of the fertile land in for settlement or for urbanization or industrialization is a serious issue, because these fertile lands are very much important for food production. When this land is converted to some other purposes, something other than the agriculture, for building houses, for building houses, or for industry, for some other mining practices uses, it's actually irreversibly degrade the soil fertility and the soil use. We cannot use the soil again for cropland or anything like that. So preventing conversion of productive soil lands is very much important. There should be policies, legislations, laws, and everything to strictly prevent the use of agricultural land for other purposes. Then instead of using the agricultural land, densification and reuse of existing urban infrastructure should be promoted, uh, and the areas of significant ecological value should not be converted to any other uses. Prevent and mitigate soil compaction. Soil compaction is due to the imposed stress by machineries or livestock on the soil. The soil compaction, what happens is like the space between the soil particles will be reduced and it will be a compact soil, which prevent the gas exchange and the water exchange in the soil, and which is not really good for plant growth. So compaction limit the root growth and seed germination, which negatively affect soil fertility. So to avoid that, what we can do is like the use of like excessive tillage and inappropriate and excessive tillage should be avoided, and with vehicle traffic in the field should be avoided, and it will be minimized if it cannot be avoided. Then this machinery should have appropriate systems to reduce the pressure on the soil. Maybe bigger wheels, you have seen for tillers and everything, they are having bigger wheels, which actually helps to reduce the pressure on the soil so that it won't be compacted. Okay. Then adequate amount of soil organic matter should be maintained, because of the soil organic matter can actually resist the soil compaction. Then microbial activity should be promoted. Then gazing system should be well maintained so that the compaction is in a limited area can be avoided. Then improve the soil water management. So soil water management is very much important, because sustainably managed soil has rapid water infiltration, optimal soil water storage for plant available water, and efficient drainage when saturated. So unsustainable soil, water logging and water scarcity. So water logging, as we already discussed, that it is the increase the amount of soil in the or the saturated soil saturation, water saturated soils in the root zone of the plants. And water scarcity, in water scarcity, water is not available. Both of this, water logging and water scarcity, is not good for plants and not good for soil health. So how can we avoid it? So in humid areas, what we need to do, we should have draining system to avoid water logging, and there should be surface and subsurface drainage system, and there should be irrigation system should be efficient to avoid water logging. In dry land, the water use should be optimized. Water harvesting to increase the soil water availability when the rain time and everything, water should be harvested. Optimal soil extraction, soil water extraction by crops should be done, because by using right type of crops for the land. Regularly monitoring irrigation water quality for nutrients and potential harmful substances. So these are the ways in which we can sustainably manage soils. Thank you so much.